there. Okay, we are back up. I don't know what the hell happened there, but it happened. Pop out the chat again. Okay. It says we're still kind of... Jesus Christ, people. Okay, so what I need to do is need to get the chat back up. I apologize. The stream just crashed. OBS just said nope and decided to crash. Don't ask me why, it just did. They got overwhelmed, I guess. It's okay, it's alright. Don't worry, I haven't done anything, it's just... Okay, now we're just a matter of getting the EQ correct. So I always do two. So let's get this correct. Okay, I always lower the bandwidths. So I think I always take the bass up just a tad. If I remember correct. So now you're seeing how I get my tone. Like the tone of voice that I use. I don't think I go any higher as 7. Timberwolves ate the cable, laughed my ass off. Apple Bloom couldn't believe what she was seeing, and chills ran through her spine, causing her to tremble in place. For a moment, the filly started to run, Panic's icy fingers caressing the innocent mind of the pony and igniting her natural defense mechanism. She found her lungs had faltered, and she heaved great bellows of air as she calmed herself. It couldn't hurt her. It was obviously beyond causing harm to anything now. Apple Bloom finally came to her senses as she looked down into the brush of the Everfree forest floor at the mutilated remains of a filly. What remained was a shredded massacre. So much damage had been done that the corpse was barely distinguishable as a young pony somewhat near Apple Bloom's age. Her coat was torn beyond recognition, and the meat of her body hung ripped and cut from some animal's teeth or claws. That might do it. The poor filly had been eviscerated. Many of her organs lay in places beyond her stiff, lifeless legs, pulled from a sickening wound on her belly. Yeah, I think that's good. Now I just have to listen through and get out those little air pockets. Hello, Logan Colette? I have no idea. I apologize to any of the viewers that are here now, that the stream just went dead, but that was OBS. That's not me. So, what do you want me to do? Don't know why I went dash there. So, okay. So, now it's just a matter of listening and getting out all these little air pockets. And maybe arranging it as well. Whoops-a-doodle. Whoops-a-doodle. Oh, shit. Jesus Christ, people. What the hell's going on out there? Apple Bloom couldn't believe what she was seeing, and chills ran through her spine, causing her to tremble in place. Okay. For a moment, the filly started to run, Panic's icy fingers caressing the innocent mind of the pony and igniting her natural defense mechanism. She found her lungs, but now you see how this audio gets clean. Do I need to apply the ceiling thing? And her lungs had faltered, and she heaved great bellows of air as she calmed herself. It couldn't hurt her. It was obviously beyond causing harm to anything now. How high are we going? Apple Bloom finally came to her senses as she looked down into the brush of the Everfree forest floor at the mutilated remains of a filly. What remained was a shredded massacre. So much damage had been done that the corpse was barely distinguishable as a young pony somewhat near Apple Bloom's age. May have to go up. Her coat was torn beyond recognition, and the meat of her body hung ripped and cut from some animal's teeth or claws. Alright. The poor filly had been eviscerated. So far, so good. Many of her organs lay in places beyond her stiff, lifeless legs, pulled from a sickening wound on her belly. Had been eviscerated. Many of her organs lay in places beyond her stiff, lifeless legs, pulled from a sickening wound on her belly. The poor... Is it Colette or Colette? I would imagine the latter, but it could be the first one. I better check my emails and all that stuff too. Oh, new release. Come on, Lullaby, get back to me. But now you see, now you've seen the process of how my audio goes from, you know, raw to clean. It's not the cleanest audio per se, but it's clean. Belly. The poor filly's head was similarly... Hold on. That might be a little bit of a plosive. Belly. The poor filly's head was similarly destroyed beyond recognition, and Applebloom swallowed hard, fighting a wave of nausea. Sorrow swept the young apple filly at the... Okay, now you just go back a little bit. So now it's just a matter of organizing, getting out little air pockets if they're there, and yep, fighting a wave of nausea. Sorrow swept the young apple filly at this poor being robbed of life, fighting a wave of nausea. Sorrow swept the young apple filly at this poor being robbed of life. It was the first body she had ever seen, and despite being repulsed and terrified of it, her eyes couldn't look away. The child's heart sank, and tears fell from her eyes as she looked the mangled carrion over again. Stop. I need to go get some more coffee. I will be right back. Oh, great. Now I got that song stuck in my head. It's alright. Okay. What's he laughing at? Oh, can you hear the conversation going on outside? Probably. This mic catches everything. The mangled carrion over again. She had no way of knowing who it had been. The body was far too damaged for that, and instead simply grieved for it. Whoever she was, she didn't deserve to be alone in the Everfree forest. Some pony was probably looking for... Hold on. The mangled carrion over again. She had no way of knowing who it had been. The body was far too damaged for that, and instead simply... Hang on. The mangled carrion over again. She had no way of knowing who it had been. The body was far too damaged for that, and instead simply grieved for it. Whoever she was, She didn't deserve to be alone in the Everfree forest.
That's interesting.
Some pony was probably looking for her. Apple Bloom sniffled and wiped her eyes while her stomach ceased doing flips. Fear had blown away in the soft breeze, replaced with a terribly somber feeling that shook the apple filly to her core. She needed to tell some pony. This poor victim needed to be brought back to her family where she might have peace despite the horrific death she had found. A thought struck Apple Bloom like a bolt of lightning and caused her to jump and whip her head around to take in her surroundings.
Hold on.
What if the bloodthirsty denizen that had feasted upon the nameless pony still stalked the area? A somber feeling that shook the apple filly to her core. She needed to tell some pony. This poor victim needed to be brought back to her family where she might have peace despite the horrific death she had found. A thought struck Apple Bloom like a bolt of lightning and caused her to jump and whip her head around to take in her surroundings. What if the bloodthirsty denizen horrific death she had found? A thought struck Apple Bloom like a bolt of lightning and caused her to jump and whip her head around to take in her surroundings. What if the bloodthirsty denizen that had feasted upon the nameless pony still stalked the area? Apple Bloom could tell that the kill had been fresh by the way much of the blood had not yet dried.
Hang on.
She needed to hightail it back to Sweet Apple Lakers before she became an unidentifiable mass of sticky meat. Throwing caution to the wind,
over here.
Apple Bloom dashed back from the corpse as quickly as her hooves could manage,
Which one do we
deaf
want
to
here?
the noise caused
Here?
by her frantic gallop to escape the bowels of the Everfree forest. Applejack had always warned her not to wander alone into the forest. The creatures that dwelled within were not like those who resided around Ponyville. They were wild and unpredictable, subject to only their individual needs at any given moment. Her big sister's words echoed through her mind, and she found herself looking over her shoulder as she ran, causing her to run all the harder in the attempt to escape what may be in pursuit. The filly galloped faster than she ever had before and expected her tiny legs to be aching from the overuse, but the adrenaline had been blocking the pain associated with overtaxation of her diminutive frame. It seemed as if she had been running forever when she finally burst from the bushes. And planted her hooves back onto the beloved ground of her home.
Okay.
Breathing hard, the filly turned to the boundary of the forest, backing away slowly and attempting to gather her wits while expecting the horrific jaws of a timberwolf to explode from the foliage and drag her back into its depths.
Jesus Christ.
Apple Bloom had never been afraid in the forest and had explored it many times alone or with the other Cutie Mark Crusaders, but that was going to change now. She had seen what could happen in the recesses of the wild worlds that bordered her home, and counted herself lucky that she hadn't stumbled across her own death in her many adventures in that interesting, yet dangerous place. It felt as if a cart full of apples rested on her back, and she couldn't help but cry anew at the thought of how she had been so terrifyingly close to her own demise so many times by the deliberate disobedience of exploring the forest.
Jesus Christ, that was a lot
Sometimes
of sense.
adults really did know what they were talking about, and only the luck and resiliency of childhood shielded the impetuous and naturally curious foal from a tragic fate. For the first time in...
Hang on. As for me, I'll draw some while listening. Yeah, my last note, okay. It's part 3 to 20 aprings later, coming soon. I don't plan to do any other sequels to it. I'm just leaving it the way it is. I've thought about doing some sequels, or I've thought about doing a sequel, but I just don't want to. I feel it's fine the way it is. I like the mystery aspect. I just don't want to ruin something that's already good. Which is what happens if you take something too far. Thank you for the compliment, but seriously, though, it sucks about Rena, but for those instances, just continue your good work and stories. I love it, and find those, and those that find it will truly love it like I did. Seriously, thank you. Unfortunately, those things just, happen sometimes, but you keep going and keep up your content and working, yeah. I don't really give a crap what anybody else thinks. It's my work. So, I enjoy my work, and yeah. They can go suck a dick for all I give a shit.
For the first time in Apple Bloom's young life did she glimpse the real world. Unadorned by the imagination of youth and the wonder of inexperience, the cold and remorseless landscape of reality flooded the filly's senses, breaking many of her juvenile preconceptions. For a great many minutes, the yellow earth pony watered the sweet-smelling grass with salty droplets, mourning not just the nameless pony, but the passage of her youth, for she knew that she could never return to the world she had known. Apple Bloom was imprisoned in the colorless void of reality.
Okay.
Apple Bloom lifted her mournful eyes to the setting.
A little too far of a pause right there. That's all this step requires, is listening and focusing.
The colorless void of reality. Apple Bloom lifted her mournful eyes to the setting sun in the distance, bathed in the slowly closing light of the day. Her heart weighed as much as her older brother, but the filly pushed herself to her hooves and walked slowly towards the farmhouse, her head hanging low in abject misery. The young filly had endured a very trying day. Normally a very energetic and positive filly, Apple Bloom's moping and gait was abnormal and painted the filly as a negative of herself. Her emotions had bottomed out, and she couldn't remember why she had even ventured into the woods earlier in the day. It didn't matter. She wouldn't be stepping into that place again.
We're doing pretty good.
Whoa, doggies! Bitch!
Push that out a little further. Just push that out a little further. That's a little too close. Whoops.
Be stepping into that place again. Whoa, doggies!
A little too close. Or a little too far.
Be stepping into that place again. Whoa, doggies!
That's good.
Fetch the stick, Winona! Apple Bloom heard her sister's exclamation and turned her dreary gaze upward slightly to see Applejack loose a stick in her general direction with the family dog, Winona, giving chase as she followed the stick's flight.
Okay.
It landed a few feet from the troubled filly, and Winona skidded to a halt and happily snapped the piece of wood up into her mouth. Winona must have sensed Apple Bloom's sorrow as she paused stick in mouth and peered deeply at the young filly. A questioning aspect took over the dog's joyful mirth, and Apple Bloom thought the canine even seemed fearful. It was only after Applejack called for her.
Right there. That's when I knew this story. 7 minutes in. So, yeah. I had it figured out exactly right there, because I know what dogs... I know that dogs can sense those things. So, there you go.
It was only after Applejack called for her that the dog broke her puzzlement and raced away to return to her loving master.
Okay.
Good girl, Winona.
Oh, it's a...
I'm plumb tuckered.
It's dialect.
Let's knock it out for the day, okay?
Okay.
You're such a good girl. Applejack scratched at the dog, smiling at her enthusiastically. Apple Bloom sat next to her older sister and wiped her eyes with one foreleg, signaling her sister that she needed to talk, and waited for AJ to finish with Winona.
Winona.
She waited for a dreadfully long time and tilted her head at the Stetson-wearing mare. Her voice was weak and strangled by the powerful emotions clutching her heart, so when the orange mare didn't turn, she wasn't surprised. She breathed a thick sigh while Applejack rubbed Winona's fuzzy tummy, the dog's leg kicking wildly as she did. Still nothing. Apple Bloom cast her dripping eyes up to her big sister and forced her voice through the knot in her throat.
God, you can tell I took a drink of water there.
Applejack, I've got to talk to you. Something bad's happened.
That's fine.
To her surprise, Applejack only kept rubbing the dog. Winona's head turned toward Apple Bloom, and that odd look replaced the joy of the belly rub. The young filly was suddenly overcome with irritation and turned quickly. A pony lay dead in the
Okay. Let's bring this back just a tad.
belly rub. The young filly was suddenly overcome with irritation and turned quickly. A pony lay dead in the everfree forest far from home and all alone, and Applejack didn't even notice the need that Applebloom embodied. She marched away from her sister, not looking back, to find Big Macintosh. He would listen. He wouldn't be too busy for her.
Okay.
Big Macintosh was chopping wood when Applebloom found him. Seeing the axe split another thick log in twain, pieces falling to the ground in tandem. Applejack had been her first choice. She was durable, tough, and would have known exactly what to do. Not to say that Big Macintosh wasn't strong, but he was shy and carried a softer heart inside his large frame. Applebloom was afraid the dark clouds that burdened her would have much the same effect on her big brother.
No, your messages are showing up, Philippe. They're showing up.
Much the same effect on her big brother. She almost talked herself out of approaching him, but what if that monster returned for another snack and the filly's body was moved or completely devoured? She had to relay her story to an adult. It was only right that the poor foal be given her final piece. Applebloom slowly stepped near her big brother, pausing for safety behind a cart that held a multitude of logs left to be split.
Okay.
She watched the heavy axe strike again, another piece of wood reduced to kindling before her eyes. Big Mac, I gotta talk to you. Applejack won't listen, and it's awful important. Her voice was a note from a violin, high and sad. Big Mac turned in her direction, but didn't look at her, a curious expression across his features. His eyes flickered as if he were searching for something.
Most likely.
Applebloom assumed he didn't see her, as she was somewhat hidden by the large wagon.
Excuse me.
She continued to speak, her voice quivering as relating the memory caused water to swell in her eyes again. There's a filly in the woods. She's dead. I found...
Stop. Need to go here. Get this one and push it out just a tad. That might be a little too much. Yep, way too much.
There's a filly in the woods.
That's fine.
She's dead. I found her while I was out playing. It's terrible, Big Mac. We gotta go get her. We can't just leave her out there. Her little head fell and she wept again, waiting for Big Mac to respond. She felt miserable and knew he would pull her close and comfort her, his warmth filling her up and silently letting her know that everything would be okay. A thundering crack broke the filly from her misery as the axe tore through the flesh of another log, its rended pieces falling to the ground. Applebloom waited expectantly of her brother and went on with her story. I shouldn't have been out there, but it just makes me so sad to think about.
Okay.
Another thick tearing sound filled the air, and Applebloom jerked her head upward to see her brother going about his chores as if her words meant nothing.
Again.
Applebloom couldn't believe what she was seeing. She didn't know what kind of strange game her older siblings were playing, but she simply couldn't believe they wouldn't listen to her.
Okay.
A life was gone, and they just didn't seem to care. Frustration ate the filly's mind, and she burst into a wail as she darted towards the farmhouse.
Voice crack.
Stupid games at a time like this? It was just too much for the filly to handle. She was furious at the moment and hated them for it. Did they think she was making it up? Big Mac hadn't even been upset that she had admitted to being in the Everfree Forest. She threw the door open to the house and loudly stomped up the steps before entering her bedroom and slamming the door behind her. They would be sorry for ignoring her when they stopped laughing at their little joke long enough to realize she was upset. She would just climb into her bed and wait for them to come and check on her. She just couldn't grasp how they could act like that. They just didn't care. Apple Bloom pulled the blankets of her bed over her head and buried her face in her pillow, screaming once to let out her
Let me listen to it one more time.
Buried her face in her pillow,
That's fine.
screaming once to let out her frustration and burden. The pillow muffled her agonized wails, and a sudden exhaustion swept her. Her nerves had been arduously taxed, and unknown to the filly, her subconscious demanded time to process the horrendous events of the day. Her tiny eyes closed. They felt warm and puffy from the many tears she had shed that day.
Okay.
The blackness took her, giving her a moment to respite in what was the most stressful day of her life.
Okay, that's just a pause. Let's go this way.
She was being hunted. Apple Bloom could feel the predatory eyes of the creature on her, and she felt her heart beating far faster than it had before. Panic was setting in, and she felt rows of tiny bumps popping up on her flesh, her coat standing up as the oppressive feeling gained a tighter grip around the filly's mind. Her eyes were wide and searching, and she breathed in giant lungfuls of air. A twig snapped, and she shrieked. She needed to get home. Twigs.
Ghosts can interact with physical objects, dude. They can. If the spirit is strong enough, which in this case it would be kind of like her trying to connect with her family to tell them something, even though she's oblivious to it. But even with her presence, like her touching the bed or anything like that, that is a way of letting them know, hey, something's wrong. Ghosts can interact with physical objects. I've seen it firsthand. When I was little, for my birthday, I actually got this toy four-wheeler thing that was remote control, and it took batteries. Well, one day it just started moving on its own. No controller was being used or anything. It just started moving around the house all by itself. No joke. As if it was just being run. So we figured, maybe it's just something. So we took the batteries out. You think it can't run then? Try again. It was moving all by itself as if it was running with batteries. So eventually we just put the fucking thing in the garbage and called it good. That's proof right there that ghosts exist. I know who it is. It's my grandpa. My grandpa passed long before I was born. How old was my dad? Like 19? Something along those lines, like 19 years old. So he lost his dad at a very early age. And his dad was a jokester. So, so he's joked with us all the time. Like, he's followed us wherever we go. One thing was that he would turn my sister's TV on and off, and he did the thing with the four-wheeler. He's been on my stream before. I don't know which stream it is, but there's a stream where the very first comment at the top says, "My grandpa says hi," with a timestamp. Because on the screen, you can see perfectly there's like this weird, reflection of light that moves in an irregular pattern right on the screen. That is proof right there. And it's on live stream, so it can't be edited. So there you go. That's proof right there. And it's at night, so no light can be reflected from outside my door because there's nothing out there except a hallway. The door was shut anyways, and there's no opening or anything. So for all you non-believers, that should be proof right there enough. And I can see because the thing, it came from above me down into my lap, and then it moved towards my heart. That was so weird. But I knew what it was. Plus my other grandpa had passed recently. Well, it had been a few years, but he basically was telling me I'm here. I know it was him. I know it was him. Because I know ghosts exist for a fact. How else can you explain a toy moving all by itself without battery power? Tell me, how do you explain that? You can't. And that stream is completely unedited. It has been touched. So, there you go.
A twig snapped, and she shrieked.
But they
She
can
needed to get home to
interact with
Sweet
physical
Apple
objects.
Acres. It wasn't too far off, and creatures of the Everfree wouldn't venture out of the tree line.
Okay.
If she could just make a break for home, she would be safe. A growl came from behind her, and she broke in terror, panic forcing her decisions.
Ouch, ouch.
She needed to get away quickly, or it would catch her and kill her.
Okay.
She screamed loudly and scampered deeper into the woods.
This is gonna be
Her legs pumped wildly, and she tore through bushes and low-hanging limbs, earning several painful scratches across her body.
Hold on. Where was that?
Scratches. Behind her, limbs snapped, painful scratches across her body.
Right there.
Hanging limbs, earning several painful scratches across hanging limbs, earning several painful scratches across her body.
Nope.
She didn't even seem to care about scratches. Behind her, limbs snapped, and the sounds of a large predator tearing through the brush sang horror to her ears.
Okay.
The filly tore through another bush and found herself in a small clearing. She knew where she was, and adrenaline cleared her frightened mind for a moment. She realized her legs were screaming from multiple abrasions and several thorns poked from bleeding wounds. But something much worse was clear. She had run in the wrong direction. She was further from the farm than she hanging.
Stop. I need to add a pause to that for more dramatic effect. Excuse me.
From bleeding wound. But something much worse was clear. She had run in the wrong direction. She was further from the farm than she had been.
There we go.
Another throaty growl broke the apple filly's thoughts, and the terrifying wooden face of the largest timberwolf that could ever exist pushed through the foliage, its glowing green eyes promising death to the filly. She screamed and backed away a few steps until her rump pressed against the bark of a large tree.
What was that?
Its glowing green eyes promising death to the filly. She screamed and backed away a few steps until her rump pressed against the bark of a large tree. The eyes of the beast entranced the filly, and she was paralyzed under the gaze. Her mind screamed for her to run, but her body rejected the command. She brought her forelegs up to protect herself from the monster, but she knew it was a useless gesture. Through her shivering limbs, she witnessed the beast open its drooling maw and lunge, those huge teeth encompassing all of her vision as a scream broke from her throat.
Okay. Let's break that.
The door to Applebloom's room thundered open.
What?
The door to Applebloom's room thundered open, causing the filly to tumble out of her bed to crash out of sight to the hard floor. She gasped in fright. The monster was here. She brought her forelegs up to protect herself from the...
Okay, more dramatic effect here. And no, Solar, he has never turned off lights. He's only turned off TVs. He doesn't want to scare us, so I can understand why he only goes so far as to do what he does. He's just a friendly little ghost that toys with us every once in a while, so it's no big deal. Okay, what am I doing here?
She gasped in fright. The monster was here. She brought her...
Okay, then cut that to be a little bit more of a pause. Maybe.
The monster was here. She brought her forelegs up to protect herself from the jaws of the terrible creature. Applebloom, you ain't here?
It's fine.
Her sister's voice was loud and shaking with fright, but Applebloom realized with relief that she was at home. The monster was only a dream, brought on by the nightmare she had seen in real life. Applejack must not have seen her fall out of the bed, and she considered not answering. Her sister hadn't wanted to hear what she had to say earlier, so why should she care now? Did you find her? Another voice broke from the door. It was Big Macintosh. He rarely spoke, and when he did,
Okay,
it
nobody.
was out of necessity. It was so odd to hear him string together a sentence, no matter how small, that Applebloom understood the situation must be important. No. Oh, Mac, do you think she went out into the forest again? Applejack answered. Applebloom, understanding the severity of the situation.
Oh. I missed a mistake. So let's fix that real quick. See, this is what can happen. It's no big deal. It's easy to fix. Excuse me.
Applejack answered. Applebloom, understanding.
Okay. That's easy. We can fix that. It's no big deal. It's actually really easy to do on here. Much easier than Audacity, but Audacity's a lot more better, I'd say.
Applejack answered. Applebloom, understanding the severity of fear. Applejack answered. Applebloom, understanding the severity of the situation, popped her head over the bed. Hold on, I'm right here, but...
Okay.
She was too late and only saw shadows moving away from her door. With a quick glance to the window, she saw that it was late in the evening, probably past her bedtime. She must have slept through dinner.
There we go.
She got to her hooves and darted across the room, carrying Applejack and Big Mac downstairs. We gotta find her. That place is not safe for any pony, let alone a little filly. Oh, I'm gonna whoop her good when we find her little rump. Applejack's voice quivered again, and Applebloom tossed any notion of paying her family back out the window. She didn't like making them worried. Yep. I hope she's okay. Just as Applebloom landed on the first floor, she saw the front door slam shut. She quickly followed after her older siblings, calling their names as she...
Oh, we have a little air pocket. One little air pocket. See if I can't get that just from this view. Oh, shit.
She quickly followed after her older siblings, calling their names as she pried the heavy front door open. Her eyes took a moment to adjust to the night, but she could see the bouncing light of a lantern and two silhouettes within heading across the fields towards the Everfree Forest. It was dark, and creatures of the forest were far more awake at night. Finding the body could wait until morning. Applejack! Big Mac! Wait! They must not have heard her, as their forms began to shrink in the distance.
I'll work on
She
that
heard
later.
the distinctive sound of barking as Winona joined them. Applebloom, unable to shake the mutilated body from her head, gave chase to her siblings, afraid whatever ate the filly may find them as well. Her legs pumped wildly to catch up. They had stopped at the tree line, and Applebloom could see Applejack holding what looked like one of her ribbons down for Winona to smell. She called on all of her reserves to sprint towards the longer-legged ponies, but Winona howled and leapt into the darkness of the woods. Applejack and Big Macintosh close behind her. Wait! It's dangerous in there! Applebloom skidded to a halt at the forest line and nervously muttered to herself. She didn't know what to do. She hollered loudly, but the forest was too good at muffling sounds, and she knew that her siblings wouldn't hear her. She didn't want to go into that place again, but she knew she had to do it. There was a bloodthirsty beast lurking within, and she couldn't stand the thought of her family becoming like that poor filly. A sudden surge of courage took the tiny pony, and she dashed into the forest, calling after her family. The filly was smaller than her siblings were, and could maneuver through the straggly brush more easily. Applebloom began to gain ground on her larger kin. Her lungs burned, and she panted as she followed the direction of the barks.
Okay.
Stop! She cried, ducking thorns and limbs. Winona had a great sense of smell, and she must have picked up on the stench of rot because she was leading them towards the body. Applebloom grew more adamant in her fervor to intercept her family before they crossed into the beast's hunting grounds. She needed to warn them and get them out of the Celestia forsaken forest. A light blinked in the distance. It was Applejack's lantern. It had to be. Applebloom.
Okay. Make that a little bit more of a dramatic pause. Very good thing to do for like horror fits.
It's Applejack's lantern. It had to be.
That's good.
Applebloom could swear she heard the sounds of the beast stirring all around her. It was coming for them. It smelled their delicious meat and was coming for another banquet of pony flesh. She was running out of time.
That's good.
Applejack!
Applejack.
Throwing aside her scruples, she allowed her body to wrestle through the vines, weeds, and limbs. Any scrape was far less important than the well-being of her loving family. The light from the lantern grew, and she could hear their voices as she closed the distance. Winona, find her, girl. You gotta find Applebloom.
Should have done a little better.
Applejack's voice was dripping with fear, and Applebloom could barely make out the shapes of her family against the light.
Sorry.
She continued to push through the dense forest, her body feeling no pain despite the many briars she knew she had run through. Winona began barking wildly just as Applebloom came into the clearing, finally having reached her brother and sister. What is it, Winona? Did you find Applebloom? They were struggling to bring the lantern over what had Winona barking, but Applebloom knew. Winona had found the corpse of the filly.
A little too long of a pause right there. Okay, bring this back a little bit.
Over what had Winona barking, but Applebloom knew. Winona had found the corpse of the filly.
Good.
Applejack! Big Mac! We gotta get out of here! Now!
Jesus.
Applebloom leapt in front of the pair, but their eyes seemed to look right through her.
Jesus Christ.
The lantern shed its illumination across, and as she turned to regard the body, she was frozen by a sudden cold in her tummy as she realized that she was not casting a shadow. The light just seemed to pass right through her. Ugh.
Hang on, hang on, hang on. Let's push that out a little further. Oh, man. Why am I so good at this shit?
A shadow. The light just seemed to pass right through her. Ugh. Oh no, Mike. I told her. I told her not to.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Applejack, the most stalwart of the Apple family, burst into tears and slumped down to her haunches as she gazed onto the remains of the mutilated filly. She sobbed deeply and was joined by her older brother, his whooping sobs breaking the night air. The pair clutched each other for comfort, but none could be found. Applebloom couldn't move. Shock had...
where is that?
Applebloom...
Right there. Let's push that out just a little further. It's a little too quick for my liking. That's what she said.
None could be found. Applebloom couldn't move. Shock had devoured her, and only watch as Applejack reached, but none could be found. Applebloom couldn't move.
That's weird.
Shock had devoured her, and she could only watch as Applejack reached clean through her, her tiny body motionless as the larger foreleg pulled something that had been hiding under a wide fern. Winona turned towards Applebloom's seemingly immaterial form and howled sorrowfully, her eyes steeped in despair. Applejack pulled... Hang on. Whoa, not that close. And howled sorrowfully, her eyes steeped in despair. Applejack pulled the torn cloth through Applebloom's torso and broke into a long, deep well of loss sorrowfully, her eyes steeped in despair. Applejack pulled the torn cloth through Applebloom's torso and broke into a long, deep well of loss. Applebloom felt as if her mind was pulling apart at the sight. Resting on Applejack's shaking hoof were the tattered remains of Applebloom's main ribbon, mangled and stained crimson from her last few moments of life. God damn. Just imagine discovering that. Just imagine that. Oh my god. I'd be sick to my stomach. Like, if I found my niece, or even my sister, you know, like that, oh my god. I'd lose it. Let's see. I think we're good to go here. So, export, MP3. Completely clean. Not clean. Not complete. Not yet. Save that to the music file. Sure. I'm gonna upload to my drive anyways. Good. Okay, and that is the cleanup process. The cleanup and making the narration sound gorgeous process. This fic is 60% sad fic and tragedy, 40% grimdark. Like I said, it kind of is a grimdark because, well, if you kind of think about it, it's mainly a sad fic. But here's the thing, grimdark revolves around those two things. Sad stuff and tragedy. Well, tragedy and sad fic are kind of the same thing. But tragedy is part of grimdark. Like I said, I love grimdark because it's composed of many different layers of things, like multiple different kind of genres, or different like genres of, you know, things. That's what I like about grimdark. It's very, like, it has just so much to it that it blends well and makes it unique. I mean, when you think of the term grimdark, you think horror immediately. Well, in kind of a way, it is horrifying. I mean, imagine walking up on your brother, sister, mother, father, completely just destroyed by, you know, some animal in a forest. You know? And you were completely unaware that they were killed. I mean, that's got to be horrifying for Applebloom as much as, you know, her siblings. Realizing that you're dead. But that is the cleanup process. I'm gonna have to check to see if everything is okay because it's done that to me before and I don't want to even try it. What now? That's cool and creepy. I love it. Cool. And now proof. Now proof. Cool. Nice. Interesting. Very interesting. Nice. Good God. Just say nice enough. I'm sorry for your loss, though. Well, I appreciate that. That was, God, years ago. It was right before I graduated, wasn't it? Yeah, I believe so. It was like right before I graduated, like 20... Yeah, it was 2013, I believe. Right before I graduated. But yeah, I don't know if I want to label it as a... It's mainly a sad fic, but it does have grimdark elements to it. I mean, that's kind of... I don't know. It technically is a grimdark. If you think about it, it is a grimdark. Because it's got that sad, tragic, hopeless ending.
I mean, sometimes just giving genres to certain stories is really tough. Like, it is technically a grimdark, but it's mainly a sad fic. That's the thing. Anyways, I just wanted to get this done nice and early so I didn't have to worry about it all day long. That way it's done and I can just relax the remainder of the day. Alright, now let's import it into Audacity and make sure nothing got fucked up. God, I'm really glad I was not recording today. Otherwise, that would have been what would mess me up, most likely. All of this construction. Let's see. W. It's that one. So I just want to make sure everything's saved fine and dandy. Because Discord Stall Part 1 had a moment where something didn't get rendered. Like, part of the narration did not get rendered. And yeah, I had to completely re-render it. Well, actually, no. I had to fix it first. This is why you always keep clean files. Like, these files, the one that I'm importing now, keep them. That way, if you make a mix and, you know, something like the narration doesn't get in, you have the completely clean audio that needs to be added, clean with nothing in it. Always keep your clean files. Trust me, it'll save you a headache and a half. But anyways, let's check this bitch. Wow, it's pretty low in volume. How high does that go? Oh, I know why.
Apple Bloom couldn't believe what she was seeing, and chills ran through her spine, causing her to tremble in place. For a moment, the filly started to run, Panic's icy fingers caressing the innocent mind of the pony and igniting her natural defense mechanism. She found her lungs had faltered, and she heaved great bellows of air as she calmed herself. It couldn't hurt her. It was obviously beyond causing harm to anything now. Apple Bloom finally came to her senses. Applechick! Big Mac! We gotta get out of here! Now!
We're hitting in -9, in the -6 kind of area. So it's a little lower than I want it to be. But we can adjust that later on. So it looks like everything got in, which is good. That's what I want to see. Let's see. Yep, everything seems fine. So, where do I want to upload this to? That's a good question. See, I'm kind of running out of room on my drive. I can upload to my Mediafire, I guess. Sure, why not? I've got plenty of room on that. What? Not Mediterranean dial, my god. Mediafire, thank you. I don't need to go on that diet. I'm only 156 pounds. And I'm as skinny as a freaking twig. Well, I wouldn't say that. But I am pretty skinny. Log in with Twitter, please. I need to clean up my Google Drive. Really, really badly. I just haven't gotten around to it. Okay, that's not what I want. Right there.
Okay. Oh, I need to begin the upload. I forgot. It's not like Google Drive. So that should take seconds. Close. Okay, it made it. So that's good. All right. So I think that's gonna be it. I apologize for the sudden interruption with OBS just crashing like a jerk, but yep, that is basically my entire process for cleaning my audio and turning it nice and clean, turning it nice and beautiful. But anyways, I'm gonna call it here, and yep, I'll probably work on this more maybe tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But anyways, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for keeping me company and chatting and doing your thing. I need to take a shower and I need to shave bad. Probably gonna skip out on the shaving, but whatever. But anyways, I'm done here, and happy horrors until the next time. And again, leave comments on, you know, what you want to see for the member stuff. I'm still trying to get that going while also managing the not the art project, the Halloween project, the this and that and this and that and this and that. So I'm not sure when this will be coming out. Honestly, I have no idea. It'll probably be coming out in September at the most. It all depends on how Sweet Dreams Sweetie does. So far, it's doing really good. Like, it's got more views than the majority of like the past two. But yep, I'm out of here, and thank you guys for joining me. And if you haven't checked out Sweet Dreams Sweetie, go check it out. It's up on the channel. But happy horse until next time, and I'll see you all again